right, so we'll go ahead and start the meeting now. Brody called me this morning to see if I wanted to get something popped up. But gave me a few different talking points for the meeting, and I gave it so formal last minute. So we'll start from there. Our speaker today is Patrick O'Donnell. For our visitors and guests, normally we start with a featured speaker. Give them a much longer presentation, and then after that, go over the order in the room, and each of us get our 60 seconds to introduce ourselves, explain what we do, and the business we're looking for. So, not to stall us any further, I'll let Patrick go ahead and get started.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Let me make sure my phone is off. First off, question: have you ever read or listened to the book "The Gap and the Gain" by chance? Dan Sullivan, Benjamin Hardy. I'm listening to it right now. It's really good. I'm an audiobook guy, so I listen to it, and my drive here is an hour. And so I got I got a full chapter in this morning, and it's really, the gap being those thoughts of, man, my life's going to look so much better if I do this, that kind of mindset, and the gain is my life is awesome right now, right? Staying present. And so it's just a good reminder, and it's just top of mind because I'm listening to it right now. So I recommend The Gap and the Gain by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. Right, good book. So before I get into it, this morning I almost put a tie on. You just don't see ties anymore, right? Or at least I don't. And I grew up in a world where it was IBM blue ties every day, right? In my corporate experience, and so it's just kind of natural habit. Whenever I put a jacket on, I grab a tie. Hi, and it reminded me of a story when I was in a former life. I worked between Grand Junction, Colorado, and Des Moines, Iowa, and part of our coverage area was eastern Wyoming. And so I would co-travel with reps a lot, and we would co-travel up into Wyoming, and I wore a tie at the time just because that's how it was at Patterson Companies. And I got into the car, and the rep looked over at me, and he goes, "You better take that damn thing off." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "You walk into a dentist's office with that tie on, they're going to think you're from the IRS." And I laughed, right? I was like, "Yeah, right." And he was like, take it off. He was dead serious. So I don't know if that's still the state of mind out there, but I'll always remember that story, that I guess there are those that associate a tie with being from the IRS. So keep that in mind. Patrick O'Donnell. My name is Patrick O'Donnell. I'm the president and founder of Top Tier Selling Solutions, based here in Indianapolis since 2018. It's powered by Sales Acceleration, which I'll get into an explanation of who Sales Acceleration is and really who we are and how we do it. I grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's where I spent the majority of my life. I was there for 25 years, and right out of did all my schooling there. Worked for Gateway Computers right out of school. At the time, it was Gateway 2000 Computers, and then it transformed into Gateway. Was with them for 10 years. That's where I started my sales leadership career, and that's where I also learned that culture is everything. That was once a $6 billion company that's gone. And to me, I attribute it all to culture. It was a complete culture collapse. Once the CEO stepped down to run the foundation, he brought in a whole set of executive leadership. And as an example, you couldn't have pictures of your family at your desk. That was an example of one of the culture changes that they made that really started that collapse. And it took 14 months. That company died in 14 months' time just because of and it was a group from AT&T, to be straightforward. Jeff Weitzen. If you ever run Jeff, run. He walked away with $10 million, and he ran that company into the ground. And so anyway, it was just a great example, not to be negative, but it taught me that culture is everything. And then I moved on to Patterson Companies, which is one of the two major suppliers of veterinary and dental equipment and supplies throughout the world. And that's where that story came from. That's where I ran that chunk of the United States. I was in the dental industry for about 17 years. And leads to my next slide. By the way, I'm a cautionary tale. I brought two advancers, the Logitech advancers. I have two of them. Both of them stopped working. So I guess you need to have three Logitech type, or just slide advancers in your pocket. So, word to the wise, I guess. So this is my why. This is my family. I'll start from right, go to left. This is our newest corgi, our 2-year-old Carl. Excuse my language, he's an asshole. I mean, this is Lorelei. Such a difference between boy corgis and female corgis. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Lorelei's 12 years old, and Carl, like I said, is 2, and they really keep us on our toes. This is, I'm 55. I'm a late starter in life when it comes to starting or having kids, or a kid. Violet, my 5-year-old daughter, was born when I was 49. And she attends the International School of Indiana. Just last night, her uncle in Minneapolis celebrated his birthday, and she sang to him his birthday in French. Yeah, just unbelievable. I mean, that's the track that she's starting out with at International School of Indiana, and she just blows our mind. It's amazing how her experience has just been. I mean, it's been an A+ experience. If you ever have anybody that wants to attend or wants to know about International School of Indiana, send it to us. It's just been an incredible experience. And that's my wife, Angie. She's really the reason that we moved to Indianapolis. She's a dentist, and she's an oral pathologist, to be specific, which is basically a dermatologist for the soft tissue in your mouth. If you were to go to the dentist, they get in your mouth, see something on your gums or on your tongue or anywhere in the soft tissue that they don't recognize, they'll lop off a biopsy, send it to her. She determines what it is and reports it back to your dentist to come up with a treatment plan. And so that's her primary work, or once was. That's what brought her here. And she's at the Indiana University Dental School on the IUPUI campus, but she's now the assistant dean of admissions for the dental school. So she's really done a nice job, and she actually likes the administrative part of it. I thought she'd hate it, but she really likes it, and her goal is to be a dean of a dental school in the next 10 years, and she'll do it. She will. So that's my why. All right, so just a real quick snapshot of the agenda. I'll get into who Sales Acceleration is. They're right up the road. It started in Fishers by 2 gentlemen. I'll tell you their story. It's kind of a neat story. And then I'll give you, actually this presentation is also going to be done, is it July 15th? I think it's July 15th. Maura Kotsky, who's a president in Sales Acceleration, she's giving a live LinkedIn presentation, basically of the same thing I'm showing you here today. So you're getting a peek under the tent. And so it's full year data, 2025 is where we pulled most of the data, and then there's 2026 is baked in as well. But most of the data is from 2025, but we're calling it the 2026 state of sales because 2026 trends are built in there is probably the best way of putting it. I'll tell you about the sales agility assessment, which is we typically lead off engagements with that. It's called 4.0 because it's 40 questions. And so the data came from that, from 5,000 plus decision makers, CEOs, business owners throughout the world. Frankly, that's where this data is coming from. An overview of how small, mid-sized business sales organizations rate themselves. I think you'll be surprised by that. I'm not, after having done this for 8 years and going into organizations and going, how in the world did you grow this to 10 million? It's pretty amazing how, well, you'll see. 2026 key trends, and then we'll dive deeper in really the 4 key areas that really make up what we consider a solid sales organization. That's sales strategy, methodology, analysis, and organization. And then at the end, if you'd like, I'd be happy. Matter of fact, I'll just send it out to you. You can do what you want with it, but I'll send you an ebook of the 2026 state of sales as we see it. And just stop me at any time, please, with any questions. Sales Acceleration, like I said, it started in Fishers. Mark and Chad. Mark and Chad started this company 2011. 2 VPs of sales and organizations. Chad was just disenchanted and walked away from his company. Mark was fired. And so they started their own fractional VP of sales business, and they were just simply going out and cold calling and knocking on business doors. And they met each other in a competitive situation, went to lunch, very, similar values. They really aligned in all ways. And so they said, hey, there's fractional CMO, there's fractional CEO, fractional CFO. If you've ever heard of B2B CFO, this is modeled big time after fractional or after B2B CFO. That's where they took the playbook. And so all kinds of fractional organizations out there, but really none that focused on sales leadership. So they said, let's start a company. And so they started Sales Acceleration in 2011. They sold it in 2021. They did very well in their sale. They actually sold it to a company here in town called the Firefly Group. And the Firefly Group owns both Sales Acceleration and EOS. So the whole idea, if you're familiar with EOS, the whole idea, I think, is to build this toolbox of, EOS and Sales Acceleration type of organizations that, so you kind of have that one-stop shop. But yeah, it's all based here in Indianapolis. First and largest, really a pioneer in the marketplace. Like I mentioned, there's 222 advisors like myself throughout the world. And it's primarily in North America. In the US is the majority of the advisors, then Canada, then UK, then Australia. But the whole idea is they want to make it a worldwide organization, and they built the infrastructure to do that. So the framework's in place to really grow the business. Over $2.7 billion in revenue management amongst the advisors. And like I'd mentioned, these are really the four, this was what makes up our certified sales operating management system. This is where it all starts with an engagement. Oftentimes we'll go to an engagement and we'll address all four. Sometimes we'll come in and do a little bit more a la carte and maybe just address the sales team, right? It's really what that owner needs and wants that will come in and create a custom engagement around what it is they exactly need. But those are typically the four pillars that we run into day in and day out as far as what owners need help with. Small business snapshot. 60% of small business, 58% of small businesses met or exceeded their revenue projections for 2025. Just under 42% did not. 68% of the respondents, and again, this is from Blue Vine's 2025 Small Business Growth and Trends Report. Their overall financial health was strong or stable. 32% just said just the opposite, and 80% came back and said inflation's having an impact on their business from 2025.
Patrick, do you know what the sample size for that is?
Yep, coming up here. It's 5,533, something like that. The number's coming up here. I call it 5,000 plus. So what that leads to is the impact of sales underperformance on business outcomes. Again, I can't tell you how many times I've sat across from an owner who is, owner-led sales is great till it isn't. And being a business owner myself, nobody thinks about my business like I do, right? I mean, I can do everything I can to get ownership from my team members, but I'm the one that cares the most. It's just bottom line. And so you run into that, and when you have owner-led sales, and they try and transition into a sales team, it's just hard. It's hard to transfer that. Hard to transfer that passion. Hard to transfer that tribal knowledge. So without a sales system required for consistent performance, these numbers suggest that many companies are operating without. I can attest to that. Most aren't. Without the right people, process, discipline, enabling technology, it's difficult to achieve and harder to repeat. Getting repeat processes in place is very challenging for most, especially when you're dealing with an owner that this is their baby, right? And to have them give that up is very hard for them to do. I mean, and rightfully so. Poor sales infrastructure weakens forecasting accuracy. I mean, you can read that. And then external headwinds like inflation expose these weaknesses. There's one thing I learned at Patterson. I was lucky enough to have a part of the United States that year in and year out we did pretty good. And there was a time where you'd wake up and you'd grow 10%. And that stopped as time went on. It was much more challenging as competitors got better at what they did. And if there's one thing that exposes weak processes and weak strategy, and really anything weak in your sales department, it's a dip in sales. The saying "sales cures all," I believe that. I really do. I've seen where if you have low sales, all of a sudden, whoa, we just aren't very good, frankly, is kind of how, that was my experience anyway. And the idea, of course, is to be ahead of that, right, before that dip happens. The client data reinforces the broader trend. I'll let you read through that. It shows a pattern of underperformance, and frankly, it's been this way for 8 years in a row. It's gotten better over time, but it's like 2%, 3%. So we've done this for 8 years in a row. We've gathered data like this. And this is the first year that we've been above 5,000 as far as participants, just because our company's growing. So in short, the message has been companies are not facing market pressure. They're acknowledging internal sales gaps that limit performance. That's what it's kind of said year in and year out. So the overall ratings full year, again, and this is self-rating, right? This is business owners rating themselves and their companies. 76% poor, I think it was 79% the year prior, so there's 3% improvement. Below average 19, average 4, nobody gave themselves an excellent, right? That's as honest as it gets. So obviously there's room for improvement out there. 5263, my fault. So 5,263, and these sales agility assessments, like I said, it's called the 4.0 because it's 40 questions. Actually, on Monday, I just kicked off an engagement with a $90 million design build firm up in Chicago, and I had their 5 sales reps, the owner of the company, who's also the CEO, and the president of the company, who's the owner's visionary, president's integrator, if you will. And I had them all take the same assessment, which you just kind of get a feel for the room and decide if you're going to do that just with the executive team or the sales reps or everybody. And I did it with everybody. It was unbelievable, the gap between what executive was seeing and what the sales reps were seeing. I mean, it was literally comical, to myself, of course. But I get to release those results in a sales meeting with those folks next Monday. And honestly, I don't think they're going to be surprised after meeting the folks in the room, and that's the reason they brought me in, executives, because they recognize that gap. But it's shocking to see what the sales reps thinks and what the executive team thinks about the 4 pillars that I showed you, right? The methodology, process, et cetera. That's really where the questions come from. So typically our ideal candidate profile or client profile, excuse me, falls between 1 and 100 million. And so that's really the range that's reporting, as well as 87% of those 5263 are B2B, and then 13% B2C, which really matches the engagements that we have. It's about that. It's heavy on B2B is where we play. And like it says, it's 54 questions. So. Kind of a repeat, but this is the overall scores that fell into place in the 4 pillars of that certified sales operating system. Sales strategy with, again, ideal client profile, pretty straightforward, buyer personas, value proposition. Sales stories, that's relatively new for us. We really focus on sales stories. That wouldn't have been in this presentation 4 years ago. And then competitor differentiators. So that 54% of those that took it said we're poor in our sales strategy makeup. And then as you read it, sales methodology, 79% poor, which doesn't surprise me. This is your tools. CRMs typically will go in and using 10 to 20% of a CRM. The sales reps are, if at all. Sales reps hate using CRMs, right? Administrative tasks just isn't natural. Usually, so to get them to use and fully use a CRM is very challenging to do. And so typically you'll come in, they'll be using HubSpot, Pipedrive, Zoho, whatever it might be. 10 to 20% of it's being used. So it's kind of fun to come in there and show what they can do when you really unlock and use everything. You kind of come in there like, whoa, how'd you do that? It's like, just friggin' use what they got, The number 1 CRM in the world to this day is an Excel spreadsheet. So, if you don't have the money to do a CRM, Excel spreadsheets are still being used prevalently, you know what I mean? Prevalently throughout the world. Sales analysis, Quotas, metrics, leading indicators, lagging indicators, again, giving a very poor rating to themselves. And the blue is improvement from the prior year. And then sales organization. And we'll dig into these a little bit more, but you can see the different areas that that those 54 questions dig into. So we'll start with strategy. Ideal client profile. I think you know what that is right? Is I'm going in, I'm creating an ideal client profile for my sales reps to go out and target, right? This is exactly who it is that we have decided as a team that we're going to go after. So you're taking that shotgun approach down to a rifle approach. When you're approaching folks, one of the things, and I'll get into AI here a little bit, one of the things that we've started to do more and more, or that I'm starting to implement more and more, is building AI avatars of the ideal client profile, right? So build an avatar in ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is that you're using, and that avatar will tell you how they want to be sold to, right? So that's been kind of neat as far as using technology and building both buyer persona and ideal client profile. Value proposition, this is me coming up to you and saying, why should I buy from you? Right, and that you've all heard it as the 30-second commercial or the elevator pitch. Typically, if you had 4 sales people in a room, you're going to get a different response from every one of them. Every member of the company, you're going to get a different response. So the whole idea being your marketing, your people, anything you put out there has the same unique value proposition, same messaging at its core. Sales stories, like I said, people relate to stories. It's a beautiful thing because it's just kind of rolls off people's tongues, right? And it's easy to tell sales stories. It's easy to tell stories that you've already lived. And so we're really trying to get people to tell stories. Obviously, and some to create pain, right? Some of the stories is to create pain or to get to a no. And then competitor differentiators. Those are the 3 areas that we really, and I think this is the one that showed the most improvement, 6% improvement from prior year. Ideal client profile. Yeah. Kind of explained that already. Clarifies exactly who to pursue, focus sales efforts, boosts win rates. It's just a great exercise, right? Before you even really start your effort, get your ICP in order. From a strategic standpoint. Communicating your unique selling propositions. I've been in 2-day workshops to create unique selling propositions. I haven't led one like that long. We have like a half day that we offer, but that's how challenging it can be to get the whole room to narrow it down to what your unique selling proposition is, or communicating your unique. This is one formula that I've come across that works pretty well. Very simple. Company A helps customer get these results by this solution. Right, very just a one-line, easy formula, if you will, that helps people explain what they do very easily from a unique standpoint. So again, consistent messaging, inconsistent messaging dilutes it. I'll move on. Let me stop. What questions? Anything? I was taught when you say, what questions? You raise your hand. So people that are afraid to raise their hand will raise it right there with you. Sales methodology, sales process, CRM system, kind of already got into the CRM system. Rarely do I come into an engagement and there's a sales process in place, or the sales process is very, very basic, which at least it's something, right? Typically, there's nothing in place at all. And then as mentioned before, the CRM system is not being used to full capacity pretty much ever. The territories, how I'm gonna cover territory coverage and how I'm gonna do that. My alignment with my marketing team, assuming I have an in-house marketing team or an outsourced marketing team. I think it's important that I've come across people that say marketing and sales is the same, which I can see, and others that have my belief that, hey, we got 2 different entities here that need to be communicating and meeting on a consistent basis. So it's just your philosophy. And then the use of AI for sales, which we'll get in a little bit more. Sales process, 73% don't have one. 83% don't know what needs to happen to move it from one stage to the next. What milestones do I need to cross and complete before I move this You know, you'll hear pipeline velocity. How soon can I get, you know, my client from my first stage to that closed one stage, right? That pipeline velocity, which 57% don't have it documented, much less feel it's understood by the team. And 83% believe they know who their most important customers and prospects are, but don't rank or put special attention to them. Segmentation, oftentimes that's an early activity where we'll segment clients, you know, simple as maybe ABC. Hey, my A clients, this is my ideal client. This is who I'm getting a ton of my revenue from. B, I want to move them to A. C, I want to move them to B, but I'm spending most of my time kind of on that mush in the middle, the B and my A's, frankly. Again, as a very simple segmentation example. All right, we're getting there. As mentioned, you know, marketing and sales working together is key. Alignment being critical. Buyers expect one connected experience and a value message, a value proposition. I'll just let you read some of that. Sales analysis, quotas, metrics, leading, lagging indicators as part of metrics, reporting, comp and incentives, team and individual goals, right? I mean, it's pretty basic. You have a budget to start out your fiscal year, whether that's calendar year or not. You have a budget that starts the year, and you dish out pieces of that pie, right? It's here's the sales team's piece of that pie, and here's Jimmy, John, and Sarah's piece of that pie, please.
So this one's kind of important to me, and I wonder what your statistics show you on how many people have realistic quotas and metrics, or if they just pie in the sky.
Oh, golly, yeah. You're sitting down it, and the first thing you do, well, I like to call it dartboard budgeting, right? And then whatever we hit. I probably have run into 50-50 on that, Tori, where I've looked at my goal, and this is back in the day, and gone, okay, that's attainable, and I can sell my reps on that, or my frontline management team, and then others where it's been, oh, how in the world am I going to do that? I mean, I got used to an environment where I wouldn't, if the year was January to December, I wouldn't get my goal till April, right? It's like they wanted to see what first quarter would do before they would even dish goals out. So yeah, I mean, attainable's everything. I think mindset is such a thing, and sales professionals are very sensitive people, right? I mean, they can be lifted up very easily, typically, and they can be brought down very easily. I mean, that life is, you know, wins and losses, as you know, and so I think attainability is just critical. And you know,
what I normally see is that people on quotas, especially on like lead generation and cold calling stuff, they just come up with a number.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do any back end. Okay, this is the dollars I need to make.
Right.
How many hours does it take to get to B? How many hours does it take to get to C?
Mm-hmm.
They just say 50 cold calls a day, 73 phone calls a day.
Yep.
You know, all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then if they hit it, they do, and if they don't, they fire them and start over.
Right, all leading indicator stuff, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've been in organizations where they fire the bottom 25% every year. Yeah, it was just a way, right? It was just part of the makeup. That was Gateway, by the way, speaking of culture collapse. Yeah, I mean, you talk about fear, right? And fear and embarrassment is pretty good motivators for adults. I hate to say it, but it is. I mean, it's what you learn when you're 9 years old, I'm not gonna change. You got to change that, and so yeah, it's to see that bottom 25 go into the last quarter. I mean, what a way to go through life, you know.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, and kind of talking about what you had mentioned earlier. There's a huge disconnect between management and the bean counters
Mm-hmm.
and the people actually making the sales.
Right.
And I've seen that in so many organizations, and I'm sure you have too.
Oh gosh.
Obviously, this clearly shows that.
Yeah.
With the numbers, and I think these numbers are rather not only interesting but shocking to me that so many people
I agree.
in their companies is being underperforming.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of them are, almost 3/4. Depends on
Fortune 100 company, and their management, I would, if they were honest, they would probably fall along with these same
Yeah,
numbers.
I
They've
bet.
got a huge sales force. It's been collapsing over the years as access to hospitals and medical providers keeps going down and down and down. But one of the things that I saw for her was that the accounting department had absolutely no idea what sales did. They had no idea
Yeah.
what their accessibility was to their ideal clients. And so they would make these sales goals so high that these sales reps, as soon as they got their goals, and they usually came out in April, coincidentally enough. And I was like, where are your goals? She said, oh, we don't typically get them for April. I mean, for next year? No,
Yeah.
for this year.
Right.
What is the point of that? But anyway, they would make up numbers.
Mm.
And because they're like, there is absolutely no way that we can hit these numbers. Absolutely no way. It's physically impossible for us to hit these numbers.
Yeah.
And so then what management did, instead of revising the numbers and saying, and asking the salespeople, hey, why is it that you're not able to hit these numbers?
Right.
They put trackers, GPS trackers on all their iPads. And then so what the sales reps would do is they actually go to the parking lots. So they would have the GPS track with them, and then they would hit that they were there, even though they didn't go in, because they couldn't get access. They physically would be thrown out by security if they went in. So they're like,
Amazing.
how are we supposed to do our job?
Yeah.
And I just mentioned this just because I find it fascinating that it looks like a lot of these are tracking along these same things. If you've got a Fortune 100 company, one of the top pharmaceutical companies in the world that is having issues like this, I can only imagine the poop show that other companies are having with their sales reps and how disconnected they are
Yeah.
with them.
And
Yeah.
they're enforcing an unethical thought process in their sales team because of fear too.
They are.
They're not really motivated to sell, they're motivated to avoid being in trouble.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
They're a boss.
Yeah, and I've worked for several companies that way.
And that's a whole different mindset, right?
You hate your job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go fire the people that are responsible for generating your revenue.
Right.
And let's keep the people that are expense line items. It makes absolutely no sense to me.
I want to speak in favor of the bean counters because I was on that side of the aisle for FP&A, and one of our roles was to create the budget for the company for the next year, right? And you try to do that, but you realize that everyone, as you're creating the budget, has their own incentive they're trying to capitalize off of. You know, sales wants the goal to be low so they can hit their bonus numbers. Manager A, who has a new initiative, wants it to be 20%. He's trying to sell new initiative item. Marketing wants it to be this because they want to be in favor of what they want it to do.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to kind of play so many interests off each other at once. It's a really difficult task to play. And if you just listen to 100% to sales and what they wanted, it wouldn't be a good budget, no more than it would be if the accountant just did what they wanted.
That's
So
a fact. That's a fact.
It's kind of a fun meshing of personalities.
Yeah. Well, and as you know, a lot of times departments are set up to have tension, right? The checks and balances is created by tension. Thanks for that. And Steve, thank you. Where are we at here? Oh, goals, both team and individual. 65% of them had no sales goals at all, which is unreal because that seems like one of the simple, just kind of no-brainer things, right, is to have a goal. And then 78% of sales reps don't sum two annual goals and have no process for determining sales goals. So this is one of those slides that just kind of shocks me because you just assume everybody's got goals when it comes to business, especially sales. Real-time insight dashboards. Yes, please.
Do you have experience with going to like the company where you have a large company, but then underneath of that umbrella, it's almost like a bunch of micro companies? Because that's kind of like the mortgage industry.
Yeah.
I'm not a W-2 employee, but I pretty much function one because I have my own little office, my own little branch, my own little net profitability margins and everything inside of the larger umbrella. And the larger umbrella, obviously they have their goals.
Yeah.
But then each individual office is kind of, it's like herding cats. They're kind of their own little thing, you
Right.
know, and the corporate wants to do, that might be nice, but that may not necessarily be what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so
And I could relate to that. I think sales acceleration can relate to that because each one of us, I mean, we invest in a reseller's license, and I have my own LLC, and I felt for 8 years that I truly am running my own business. And so they have, as part, their revenue makeup is all made up of 1099 or business owners, right? That are focusing pretty much on, I'm focusing on Indianapolis and Indiana. It really is, where I'm focusing. And so they're reliant on, us just performing well in that model, and they're not driving. I mean, they're giving us ideas and keeping up a sales toolkit. I'm also hearing centralized and decentralized, right? I've been in a model where it was decentralized and went to centralized, and decentralized worked much better.
Profitability is dependent upon
Yeah,
us.
that's challenging, right?
And so they want to push and have these
Right.
great incentives and this
Right.
and that, and then there's some on the local side, it's just like, yeah, I don't wanna work that hard.
Yeah.
We're
We're-
uncomfortable, or, well, they do wanna push and push and push.
Where I've seen them drive behavior with the advisors that own their own companies or working 1099 is through incentives, right? Driving it through a form of a comp plan, which, with an effective comp plan can do all the work for you, right? Real-time insight, this is basically dashboards. One of the things that stood out in this engagement that I started with Monday is they don't have any dashboards at all set up in their Zoho. Leadership can't look at any given time what sales is doing. Sales doesn't have any dashboards for, completion of KPIs. So that's real-time insight I see as a dashboard. Roles and responsibilities, sales organization. I'm going to focus on onboarding. With the younger generation, onboarding's become critical. In other words, the onboarding expectation by the younger generation, and I don't know what that would be called, I don't know if that's millennials and below, but the younger generation has this high expectation of getting a certain amount of attention through onboarding, where I was brought up in an environment, it's like, here are the keys to the car, go make it happen, that kind of a thing. And that's still out there. And so you're seeing the resignation rate within 90 days go through the roof in sales departments across the nation because that younger generation that has an expectation is coming in and they're not getting that onboarding guidance that really you should have in place, right? I mean, you're making a huge investment in these people. Why wouldn't you want to onboard them the way you want them to be onboarded? But there's a huge gap with onboarding. Hiring, man, oh man, talk about AI and hiring. The days of finding that diamond in the rough through interviews, pretty much gone. I mean, it's all the interview, and of course it depends on the size of the company, but you're just seeing resumes coming in initially being screened up against an ideal client profile, and if you don't fit what they want, boom, there's no chance at interviewing. Whereas in the past, you'd sit down with 100 resumes and, oh, this guy looks interesting. Maybe he doesn't have a whatever, but I'm going to sit down with him and talk to him. That's gone. Which is too bad. I mean, I can tell you right now, my best sales rep was a guy who didn't graduate from. He didn't have a college degree, which it is what it is, and he was just awesome, and he was found that way. It was through the diamond in the rough method. Performance reviews, coaching, team and individual meetings. To me, these are absolutely critical. I have engagements, 2 engagements right now. That's all I'm doing. I'm running their team meetings and I'm doing one-on-ones with their reps, and that's it. That's the engagements. And to me, that's where the rubber meets the road, is in team meetings and individual meetings. So those got to be tight. I mean, really tight. And typically, you'll huddle around the CRM, right? Your pipeline and your dashboards. That's where you live. All right, gap in onboarding and training. You can see there, 73% have no onboarding plan at all, other than go get them, Tiger. And then ineffective training. I don't mind doing training. A lot of the advisors in sales acceleration, they want to stay at 10,000 feet and manage it from that perspective. I like getting in the car and going out and doing things. If not, I might bring Matt from Sandware in to do sales training, that kind of thing. So we're outsourcing a fair amount of sales training, but there are some of us that still like to, I don't know, get down and dirty that way. There we go. There's that 30% resign in the first 90 days. I'll bet you $1. That's 30 30 and below is where those resignations are coming from. 35, 30 and below, age-wise, I mean. And then 76% have no manager shadowing. I'm working with a painting company right now in Greenwood, and that's of the three I'm doing sales meetings, I'm doing one-on-ones, and I'm doing co-travels with the reps. That's what I do. And I love it. And the owner got to a point where he just didn't like doing it anymore. And so that's what that's where his pain was. I came in and said, I'll do that for you, Luke. Oh, thank you. You know, it was just a gift. And so he's not doing any of that anymore, and I like it. Going out and doing cold calls. We did cold call walk-ins yesterday to care facilities in Carmel, and it was a hoot. You know, usually you expect that gatekeeper to kind of be like this, and yesterday we were 5 for 5 with them going, hey, great timing. It was unbelievable. I like this quote. If you want a full boat of great fish, you don't wait until you're out of bait to start planning. And it's really hard, frankly, to have a bench of salespeople replacements. If somebody doesn't work out, and I got this bench over here, I can go, plug another one in. It's hard to do that just because it's a lot of work to keep that bench full and do your other activities. But that's the ideal circumstance, right? Planning for a team, have a bench of possibilities for you to choose from if somebody doesn't work out. That's the ideal circumstance. State of AI adoption, again, this is, there's so much out there. One of the beautiful things about Sales Acceleration is they go out and they vet companies for us, right? I'm paying a monthly royalty for stuff like that. So they'll go out and they'll do vetting of AI business development companies, AI lead generation companies. So I've got a full toolkit of companies to choose from that somebody I trust at the corporate office has gone and said, yeah, these guys fit our model and they're very good at what they do. Otherwise, I mean, there's just tons of options. And I hear more horror stories about business development companies coming in and charging, $1 to $5 grand a month. We'll get you all these leads, and they get none. 90 days go by and there's none. And so if that happens in my situation, that's on me, right? That none is on me. So I'm grateful. But at the same time, there's so much out there right now to choose from that it's hard to pick. That said, 83% aren't using AI tools at all through their sales process, which just kind of baffles me. I mean, the efficiency part of it is real, and especially for business development activities, it really, you just get more at bats, frankly. And 11% using tools with their sales team. That just blows me away at this point. 86% of CEOs for small to mid-sized businesses lack AI expertise. And so if they don't know it, they're not doing it.
There's Jason. We'll bring Jason in.
Biggest impact I've seen and that we've seen is in the coaching aspect, assessing call quality. I'll go out on, like the cold calls I went on yesterday. I'll take this little Plod device with me, have it in my hand. I'm right by the sales rep. I mean, it could pick you up, Steve. If you're having a conversation right now, it picks it up word for word. I'm recording that call, that sales call. I'm going back to my office, downloading that sales call in the Claude, and I'm comparing it up against the sales process. And it spits out a report saying, here's the steps we hit, here's the steps we missed, and then I'll fine-tune it from there. But it's awesome for sales calls. And so I'm promoting the sales reps get one too, right? As long as their client knows they're recording, which is kind of commonplace anymore, they can kind of assess themselves. And it helps, remembering names and that kind of thing. So lead generation, like I mentioned earlier, and then productivity, especially in CRM. There's a lot of AI built into CRM steps now that are making CRMs more effective and easier to use, which is exactly what CRMs need to be used. Key takeaways, build the foundation. Typically when we come in, unless it's a complete a la carte, that painting company I'd mentioned, the owner's all over it. He's got processes in place. He's been studying it for years, and it was just those 3 things that he didn't like doing. But typically we'll come in and it's the whole foundation that we'll either build from scratch or completely fine-tune. Sales playbooks, you're seeing sales playbooks getting slick, and the whole idea behind a sales playbook is Tori's on my team, Tori leaves, I replace Tori, I can get replacement sales playbook as part of my onboarding, right? So you're not recreating the wheel each and every time. Yes? Oh, thank you. One unified message across the website, as mentioned, and repeatable revenue. So sales playbooks are becoming very popular, and a lot of them are created with AI's help. Improving execution, again, key takeaways, CRM regular use and using the whole thing or the majority of its capabilities. Equipping managers to coach consistently with tools like Plaude, et cetera. Standardizing your methodology, pipeline stages, and forecasting. It's very fragmented typically. If you go into an operation that does have these tools in place, it's just fragmented. You just kind of got to bring it together. Building a high-performing team, proactive hiring, having a bench, clarifying roles, responsibilities, aligning comp with your budget and your goals, all very stuff we've heard. Final thought, companies that outperform will not be the ones that simply work harder. They build the right strategy, operating discipline, and talent bench to produce consistent results. So really what we come in is we diagnose, prescribe, implement. Oftentimes you'll hear diagnose, prescribe, here's your 3-ring binder, we'll see you later. We do the work to implement it. That's one big difference between Mark and Chad's model that you see otherwise I actually kind of stay away from the word consultant because I don't feel like I'm a consultant, I feel like I'm a team member. I get business cards made for me, the whole thing. And there's my LinkedIn page. Feel free, please, if we haven't already connected. Would love to connect with you. And then I'll send out to the whole group, if it's okay with you, unless you tell me otherwise, the State of Sales book. And if you want, I'd be happy to get you, email to you that 4.0 assessment, and you can assess yourself or your business, whatever. I'd be happy to send that off to you. And you can, what'll happen is when I do that, it'll send an email to you, you take the assessment, it sends the results back to me, and then I'll just forward them on to you. So, what questions? None? Cool, right up to the, oh, man. Awesome, thank you very much.
Good job, Patrick.
Thank you very much.
A great presentation, Patrick.
Thank you.